I'm Al Regnery. I'm the president of Republic Book Publishers. We are a independent publisher near Washington, D.C., and we publish mostly nonfiction books. And I'm here today with Axel Kaiser, who is the author of a book that we published recently called The Street Economist, 15 Economic Lessons Every Citizen Should Know. And Axel is, I guess, a free market economist. I'll ask you about that and what that means. And somebody who has had very much success with this book in Latin America and a number of other countries. I think it's been the #1 bestseller, in fact, in a couple of those countries, and we'll talk about that. But the point of the book is that, as the subtitle explains, it's a primer for students and others about free market economics, what it is. And I think, as one of the people that blurbed it said, that if you read only this one book on economics, it should be Axel Kaiser's. It will change your mind and maybe your life, certainly your politics. So I thought that was a pretty good blurb. So Axel, why did you write this book?
Well, because I've encountered too many people, not only in Latin America, but also in the United States and Europe. I'm also German, who don't understand anything about economics, not the basic stuff. I mean, price theory, capital theory, free trade theory, and things like that. And so it's too much to ask, from people that they start going to university and taking economics courses or micro and macro economic courses. They will not do that. And they will not certainly understand if they buy a regular text at the bookstore. So I wrote a book that was intended to educate people from all social classes, all different venues of life in basic principles of economics. And that's why I wrote it. It's 120 pages long. Anyone can understand. No math, no graphs, no footnotes. And it's in the tradition of Frederick Bastiat, the great 19th century French economist, and also Henry Hazlitt, who wrote an important book in the United States in 1947 called Economics in One Lesson. And both of these authors were extremely successful in explaining to a wider audience how reality works in economic terms. And since 1947, we had nothing. So that's why I decided to write this book for the new generations, and it has been a huge success.
So economics is something that everybody encounters every day. I mean, and everything they do is basically revolves around economics, doesn't it?
It is. I mean, everything we do in our professional lives, or as a consumer, or whatever, as a founder of a company, everything has to do with economics. We need resources to survive. And the minute we need resources to survive, we deal with economics. There is no human existence without economics. I mean, we need to eat to begin with. And so that means we need the resources to be alive, basically, and to feed our families. And that's economics. I mean, economics deals with resources. How do we create the resources? How do we multiply the resources? And how we allocate the resources? And so, and every person should know about this, especially in these times where we have so many demagogues and politicians promising things that are really detrimental to our lives. And so we buy into these narratives and these discourses that tell us that government will solve all problems and things like that. And if you understand economics, only the basic, even the basic of economics, the basics, you will know that they are lying to you. And so you will, make better decisions when you have to go and vote for someone.
So who is the street economist?
It's every citizen, I think. I wanted to take it from the ivory tower, the discipline of economics. That's why I say there are street economists and there are the ivory tower economists. And the ivory tower economists are the professors at universities and people like that who write papers and very sophisticated books, and sometimes with zero understanding of how reality works. Like if you read Joseph Stiglitz, many of the things that he says are just wrong, or Thomas Piketty, for instance. Mm-hmm. But many of them do understand economics, but they they talk to each other. It's basically and they like to be cited by their colleagues and then to compete for the Nobel Prize and so on, but they forget entirely about the general public. It's below them to address the general public. And that's a huge problem. And that's why I decided to do this. It's a non-academic book, of course, but it's a very rigorous book in terms of the content. And these are the street economists. I want every citizen in every country to become a street economist, not necessarily, a professor at the university or writing papers, but someone who understands basic principles of economics. And if we achieve that, we will have much better countries in the end than the countries we have now. And this is not only applicable to Latin America, also to the United States, which has huge problems, and Europe and any other place in the world.
So the book includes 15 lessons for every citizen, things you say that every citizen should know. Let's talk about a few of those lessons. We don't have time to go through each one, but the first lesson you say is to work is to live. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I think this is a very simple lesson, and it's like a common sense lesson, but we tend to forget this, that in order to be alive, we need resources. And in order to get resources, we have to work, we have to produce them. So there are two ways that you can provide yourself of the resources you need. One is to work yourself, or the other one is to have someone else working for yourself, which is the second lesson of my book. This is important to know because it goes against the narrative that government has to take care of you. Because if we accept the fact that we are on this planet and we need resources to live, and therefore we need to find a way to provide ourselves with these resources, then we will understand that working and living are inseparable. We need to work in order to live. It's as simple as that. And if we don't work ourselves and we get resources from the government, that means someone else is working for us and for free, which is exploitation, basically. And this is what politicians offer you with the redistribution policies that they propose, which is someone else will pay the bill for you. And okay, you might agree with that because you are taking an advantage, but at least you have to be aware of the fact that you are living at the expense of someone else. Someone else is footing and paying your bills.
Okay, so the third lesson I think it is that wages are paid by consumers. I guess what you just said is that if your money is coming to you from the government, we think it's free, somebody else is paying it. But otherwise, if somebody's working in a business or in a store, they get paid a wage. The store customers or the people that are buying the products of that business are ultimately paying the wages. Is that more or less what that lesson is?
Yes, absolutely. This is something that, I learned from Ludwig von Mises, the great Austrian economist, and where he said, well, in the end, business owners are nothing else but some sort of employees of the consumers, because if they don't do what they want, if they don't produce the products that they want to buy at the prices that they are willing to pay, in the quality that they like, they go bankrupt. So in the end, the entrepreneur, the businessman, is someone who is providing of goods and services to the consumers, who in turn pay for these goods and services. And that's the source of the income of the company and the source of the income of everyone working in the company. And if you don't contribute with value to that process of producing these things, then you are getting zero salary, or your income is going to be very low, or you will have no income. So in the end, the consumers decide. It's a very democratic thing. The consumers decide who gets rich and who doesn't. It's as simple as that. And who is more successful as a worker within a company, and who is not as successful because you are not, adding so much value to the final product that the consumers want to buy. And so it's not the cruel employer who is deciding how much he's going to pay you. That's not how it works. It's the other you know, people on the street who are saying, okay, I want to buy this for this price. And these guys are deciding, your colleagues, your friends, you know, all the other workers in the world are deciding how much money you are making.
So it sounds like it all sort of comes down to that first lesson, which is supply and demand, doesn't it?
Exactly. So in the end, supply and demand are two sides of the same coin. Unfortunately, macroeconomics has destroyed this very old lesson, which is in order to demand something, you need to be able to offer something in return. Like if we had a barter economy, of course, you will have to offer, let's say, a kilo of fish in exchange for a kilo of tomatoes. If you don't have anything to offer, you cannot demand the tomato. So you still have exchange in a barter economy. You have prices in a barter economy, but you don't have money, which is of course a problem. But you have all the other components of an exchange system, yeah, like the market. So the problem is now with money, people believe that if you have money, then you are entitled to demand something. But money represents, in theory and in practice, it should represent the amount of goods and services that you produced yourself. And so you come with $100 and you buy something because you worked and produced something in order to earn this $100, so you can exchange them for something different than what you produced. But again, the problem is you have plenty of people who don't produce anything. And what does the government do? The government taxes people who produce. It transfers the wealth to people who do not produce. And then these people can go and claim goods and services in exchange for nothing. Or the government prints the money, which might be even worse, because then you have the inflationary tax and then you have all the problems we know. So yeah, I mean, there is no such thing as a Keynesian free lunch. Like government can print the money and they can spend the money and everyone will be richer. This doesn't exist. And this is a lesson you can learn in the book.
Sounds like a lesson every voter should learn.
Yeah, exactly.
Votes for a candidate in any country in the world. I mean, they're trying to tell us they're going to give us something for nothing, right? And politicians always do that. And I guess where an educated voter can say, well, it's not for nothing, it's going to make it a lot easier for him to decide who to vote for. Isn't that correct?
That is correct. And, you know, it has been amazing to see in Latin America so many people, working class people, who have bought the book and have read the book, and even the pirate edition is being sold on the streets for half the price, and thousands of people are buying the book, and who have approached me and told me that they have learned something that they have never imagined before, or they have never thought about it before. Like the government, in the end, is just redistributing wealth. It's doing nothing more than taking away from some people to give it to others. And of course, in this process, lots of the resources get allocated to the friends of the politicians and to interest groups, and you know, get wasted in different forms, and you have lots of corruption. But the moral implication of wanting that the government pays your bills is a very simple one. Is you want other people to be forced to work for you. This is the moral implication. And the economic consequences are disastrous, because once the government starts doing that, politicians find it very attractive to get elected by, you know, offering all these things for free, and someone else is paying for them. And ultimately, you will have a growing number of people depending on government transfers, and less people producing. And that's how you destroy a country. I'm in Buenos Aires right now, in Argentina. This is the way, you know, Argentina, one of the richest countries in the world, was completely destroyed. And it could happen to any country. So if you understand this very basic lesson, then at least you will be aware of what you are really saying and you're really asking for when you say the government has to give you money for free, or stuff for free.
Well, one reason I like the book is because you have a very straightforward way of writing. I mean, there's, as you say, it's not written for ivory tower economists, it's written for the man on the street. And you use wonderful little examples, the fish and the tomatoes, as you just mentioned. Give us a couple of other examples of some of the things you use in the book, basically, to make it understandable to somebody that is not studying economics.
Yeah, I used the same example or more or less the same example in different lessons, which is in this barter economy where you have a tribe and someone hunts rabbits and someone else goes and catches fish, and then they exchange 1 kilo of fish for 2 kilo of rabbits, or it was the other way around. But the point is that people need to understand that these exchanges explain many things. For instance, the reason why the rabbit hunter is exchanging, the meat for the fish and the other way around is because they value what they are getting in return for what they're giving more than what they are offering. So this is something that Milton Friedman used to say. In a market economy, in an exchange, all parties benefit, because they value more what they are getting than what they are giving in exchange for what they are receiving. So this is a very important point, because it destroys the zero-sum game mentality that is very persuasive across the world, I would even argue. The idea that people who have gotten rich is because they exploited and stole money and they are evil, or taking advantage. They have taken advantage of people. Unless you are really a criminal or you are really corrupt and you are in bed with government, which is also a way of making a lot of money, the only possible way that you can become rich in a market economy is by providing of your countrymen, your your people in the community with services and goods that they want. So you have to improve their quality of life in order to become rich. That's the only way. There is no other way. And I've won all the debates against socialists, and I've had dozens of these debates telling them, explain to me how someone in a market economy can become rich by, let's say, exploiting others or not serving the interest of other people, of the consumers. How is it possible? Because there is a reason why people go and spend their money buying the stuff you're offering. And so it's impossible to argue against this very essential common sense argument.
So that's your lesson there is entitled "Money is not wealth," which is, I guess, what you're saying. In other words, money may go through your hands, but it doesn't mean you're rich, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can increase the stock of money and the amount of money, and everyone knows this. Or many people know this. Not everyone. I mean, at least there are many economists who believe this is not the case. But you can have more money, but if you don't have more stuff, then you will have inflation. That's the result, put it simply. And so people confuses money with wealth, and it's different things. Money, if you want, is a technology that enables you to have indirect exchanges. And I explain in the book why this is important. And in a sense, of course, indirectly it contributes to increasing wealth for everyone, because you don't have a barter economy. You can have a more sophisticated economy. But money in itself is not wealth. If it was wealth, it would be very easy for the Federal Reserve to print $1 trillion for each citizen in America and send it to their bank account. It would be very easy for them. If they could do it, in one day if they wanted. But of course, this would be a disaster, because you will have a lot of money, lots of dollars, but the amount of goods and services would be exactly the same. So in the end, you would have hyperinflation and the complete destruction of the economic system, which is also, by the way, something that we have seen in Argentina with the hyperinflation that they had, and that Milei is trying to solve. And he's actually fixing the problem of hyperinflation in Argentina by reducing the quantity of money that's in the system here in this country. By the way, Milei presented this book in Argentina in last year. So it has been very successful here in this country, and it has been a cornerstone of the free market movement in Argentina.
Of course, we have high inflation in the United States. We have for the last 3 or 4 years. And the politicians always try to get around it. But I guess what you just said is the lesson as to why we do. As you may know, in California recently, they increased the minimum wage to $25 an hour for people working in fast food restaurants. And my question when I get into an argument about that is, why did they only make 25? Why didn't they raise it to $100 an hour? I mean, it would get
Exactly.
people money, right? Well, nobody can. I mean, if they read your book, I guess they could understand what the joke was. But it's
Yeah, I have a lesson explaining why minimum wages are big problem. They don't work and they create unemployment. And of course, you know that, I know that, but many people don't know this. And you have even economists, saying that minimum wages are necessary. But this is nonsense. Nonsense. This is not understanding how the economy really works. And what is going to happen is what we always see, or almost always, which is an increase in unemployment. You will see unemployment rising in California of this sort of jobs that will be replaced by robots or whatever. So in the end, you will have a lot of unemployed people for $25 per hour.
right.
Yeah.
So Axel, studies show, and you've probably seen them as well as I have, that increasing numbers of young people think highly of socialism for whatever reason. Obviously, if they were to read your book, they might be they might change their minds about that. I think that a great part of your book is explaining that socialism doesn't work. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yes, my experience in Latin America, where the socialist alternative and the communist ideology is more alive than in any other region in the world, has taught me that in order to be a socialist and to admire socialism, you have to be ignorant about economics and history, of course, but mostly about economics. Because if you really understood how the price system works, the basic stuff that I explain in my book, it is impossible to be a socialist. Ludwig von Mises also said that if people understood economics, there would be no socialism in the world. And socialism, it's basically an idea that it's based on a false assumption, which is the theory of exploitation by Karl Marx and all the Marxists that came after him. And of course, even before him, there were some thinkers that were proposing this idea, but that the rich get rich while the poor get poorer, the poor get poorer, and so on. I explain this theory in the book. I refute the theory in 3 pages. You don't need more than that, really. It's a very simple theory, and it's socialism. It's a utopia. It's a social dream. I don't really blame young people and people for falling into the trap of socialism, because the ideology is very attractive, we have to say, on a certain level, on a rhetorical level, not on the real level. And you have to do an extra effort as someone who believes in a free society to persuade people that socialism is a trap. It's a honey trap, if you want, because it tastes sweet at first, but then if you start following it, it leads you into a nightmare, a horrible nightmare. And so one of the reasons why I wrote this book was to prevent my country, Chile, which was the most successful country in Latin America, and we introduced these free market reforms 30 years ago, 40 years ago, with great results. Yeah, I tried to prevent it from falling again into the trap of socialism. And fortunately, I think I persuaded hundreds of thousands of people that this was not the way to go. And my book helped a lot, because they could read something short and easy to understand that would give them, the basics to learn why socialism will always go, lead you to failure.
Well, that's a pretty good reason why Americans should read your book too.
I think so. Yes.
I mean, if it's as you said at the beginning, it's 120 pages long. It's not complicated. It's in straightforward language. He's got wonderful examples in it. So I compliment you for writing it. And if we can do the same thing for the United States with this book that you did for Chile, won't we all be better off? And of course,
and for Argentina, here in Argentina, Javier Milei was promoting the book a lot, and it became an important part of the free market movement in this country. And we are really turning the country around. So I'm not saying it's because of my book, of course, but it played a role. And I think that it could be also really useful in the United States in order to create a new wave of free market thinking that would be also endorsed by the younger generations who are being taught socialism at schools, at universities. And if they go down that path, they will destroy the United States completely. Like, I mean, I come from Latin America. I can tell you what socialism does to countries. And so I hope I can play a role, even if a small one, in helping the United States, a country that I admire so much, not to go down the same path that we have in Latin America.
Well, that's why we published the book. It's as I say, a very straightforward read. It's a 1795 book. You can read it in 3 or 4 hours. Even if you don't read all of it, you can read part of it here and there, and educate yourself on economics, and maybe help save the country, save the world. It's certainly going to change your point of view about it. It's available everywhere books are sold, and we hope that people will buy it and read it and live by it, and will have a profound impact on the future of America. So thank you very much, Axel. And we certainly appreciate what you've done. And to the extent you've helped some of these countries move themselves out of a socialist economy, that's a wonderful tribute to you. And we'll do everything we can to do the same in the United States. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.